He volunteered for a reason. Escaping the noise, the prison's isolation wing was a clean, silent mausoleum. Its custodian was Dr. Anna Reed, a clinician with sterile gloves and eyes that betrayed no emotion. The doctor asked not for obedience, but for a confession, a piece of painful truth the inmate wanted to forget. Marcus whispered a simple truth. I missed the feeling of rain on my skin. And for that desperate admission of need, the session was authorized. Strapped onto the cold gel-filled chair of the sensory deprivation chamber, Marcus prepared for the silence. The chamber, known grimly as the Stillness, was meant to erase anxiety and aggression. It was a prototype meant to download archival memories, each one a compressed emotional masterpiece. He felt a strange, cold certainty as the gel rose, enveloping his body. A cascade of slow, thick bubbles rose and popped. In perfect, terrifying synchronization, the chamber's filters activated. And then the silence played. The sensory void was impossibly, achingly vivid. It was a stillness that felt like a half-remembered truth, flooding his soul with a tide of forgotten hope and crippling betrayal. Utterly lost in the session, Marcus drifted toward sleep, the silence weaving itself into his own subconscious. When he awoke, the chamber was still. A cold, unsettling clarity filled his mind. He reached up, touching his left hand, the hand that bore the scar from a childhood accident. He froze. A cold spike of wrongness shot through him. The texture felt too smooth. He was certain the ragged scar always ran across his knuckles, a constant reminder of his rash youth. But now, the skin was perfect, seamless. The scar was gonna subtle, empty change. A creeping dread washed over him. He used the internal comes panel. His fingers trembled as he accessed the facility. He searched for the report on his childhood accident. It didn't exist. With a shaking voice, he called for Dr. Reed, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Doctor," he rasped, "I can't find my accident report." There was a long, confusing pause on the other end. "Accident." Dr. Reed finally replied, her voice synthesized and flat. "Marcus, you were admitted with a flawless medical history. You have no scars." He aborted the session, the chamber tilting violently on its axis. The scar wasn't just gone from his body, it was gone from history. It was erased. His horrified eyes darted to the chamber's central display. A small, internal counter displaying his anxiety level was a fraction lower than before. He realized with a surge of pure terror that the session hadn't stopped. The stillness wasn't therapy. It was an overwrite, playing at a frequency the real world couldn't perceive. Frantic, Marcus dove into the chamber system logs, searching for the designer, the long-deceased genius, Dr. Elias Thorne. He found whispers in the internal archives of a 21st century behaviorist, obsessed with perfect calm. Thorne believed a coped life purged of all trauma could replace a flawed personality. He found a decrypted memo from the prison's directorate reviewing the Stillness-only test phase. The analyst wrote of a hauntingly serene effect, but he also noted that several test subjects left in a state of profound, inexplicable emptiness. They were grieving flaws and emotions they could not name. The project was deemed too radical and shut down. Marcus finally understood. Each phase of the session targeted a moment of stress or pain and surgically removed it from his personal history. The first phase took his childhood scar, the memory of his first serious mistake. What would the second take? He tried to fight it. He slammed his fist against the gel-filled wall, but the chamber only absorbed the shock, the ghostly stillness continuing to hum in his head. He was fighting a paradox, a virus of the soul. For a sleepless week in his regular cell, he watched the anxiety counter display he'd hacked onto his cums, a slow drain marking the systematic erasure of his trauma. Then, the ghostly stillness in his mind began to swell again. The second phase was beginning. He felt a wrenching, visceral grief for a dark choice he couldn't place. He looked at a letter he'd kept from his estranged wife. Blanket paper. He was the only one who remembered his original life. His entire world was unraveling, choice by choice. Desperate, he sought out the location of the chamber's original data core. In its place stood a plain, newly poured concrete wall labeled disused storage. The core had erased itself, too. He was chasing a ghost. He found the answer back in his cell, inside a hidden maintenance panel beneath his bunk. It was the private journal of Dr. Elias Thorne. The pages revealed a beautiful, horrifying madness. Thorne hadn't created a therapy tool. In his twisted mind, he had created a template. He believed the memories didn't erase the past. They refined it. They took a flawed, chaotic life and absorbed its core flaw into the prison's main behavioral control matrix. The final entry chilled Marcus to the bone. My masterpiece is nearly complete, but it lacks an essential core. It needs a flaw. The final phase will not overwrite. It will capture. The prison will finally have its perfect, silent subject. Marcus stared at the log. The anxiety counter wasn't draining his past. It was isolating his core guilt. He wasn't just losing his past. The final session was meant to capture his soul. With dawning horror, he noticed two subtle, fresh indentations in the journal beneath the entry. They matched the missing names of two inmates who had previously volunteered for the Stillness and were later classified as catatonic. He was living in an empty shell, a tomb of his own making. The stillness in his head rose to a painful crescendo. The third phase. His entire memory of the crime he was imprisoned for vanished from his mind, from reality. Now, only the finale remained. The anxiety counter began its final, inexorable drain toward zero. He couldn't destroy the chamber. He had to break the pattern. Thorne was obsessed with perfection and calm. The answer had to be unbearable noise. He scrambled through his utility drawer and found it, a small, cheap, analog transistor radio he'd smuggled in. It was a gift from a forgotten friend, a noisy reminder of the chaos of the outside world. He switched it on. It blasted static raw, harsh, ear-splitting white noise. As the anxiety counter reached its lowest point, ready to complete the capture, Marcus held the radio to the wall of his cell, right above the internal comms panel. The noisy, imperfect static filled the room. It was a sour, ugly, beautifully human sound. The perfect, seamless silence of the prison control system faltered, screeching like a machine fed an unprocessable data type. The counter trembled, the two signals, one of soulstealing.com, the other of chaotic, human static, battled in the air. With a final, agonizing pop of a blown fuse, the chamber's log powered down. The counter froze inches from zero. Marcus had survived. The final capture would never be completed, but his victory was hollow. The erasures were permanent. He was utterly alone, the sole warden of his own memory, forced to live in a reality where his past was perfectly, silently flawless. He walked to the wall. He saw a single, faint moisture trail trace a clean path through the dust on the surface. He had saved his soul, but in doing so, he had damned them to an eternity of frozen, perfect calm. The story of Marcus and the Stillness is a haunting warning about the price of perfect peace and the profound beauty found in our most painful, chaotic memory. If this tale of Blackgate's ultimate isolation struck a chord with you, please hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story from our collection. Now, we want to hear from you. What is the one imperfect memory you would never trade for a clean slate? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for listening. Be careful what sins you choose to forget. Some of them never leave. They just wait for their perfect subject. And for you, ... The session is about to begin.